Hi and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. We have a really exciting program today and we are so excited to invite you to our webinar today. What we're going to talk about is some really exciting stuff. First of all, the webinar is called Secrets Revealed: How Leading Owners Digitally Transform Their Construction Improvement Programs. My name is Chris Bell, and I'm very excited to invite you to meet our panelists for today. So we have Steve Jones. He's the Senior Director of Industry Insights and Research at Dodge Data and Analytics. Steve focuses on emerging economic, practice, and technology trends and how they're transforming the global design and construction industry. In addition to hundreds of speaking engagements around the world in numerous articles and industry publications, he produces Dodge Data and Analytics SmartMarket reports on key industry trends, which are read by millions worldwide and frequently cited as authoritative references. Steve holds an MBA from the Wharton School of University of Pennsylvania and a BA from Johns Hopkins University. He has a track record of leadership in many initiatives and has served as judges for numerous industry awards. We also have Chad Foley. Chad Foley is a technology supervisor at the City of Raleigh Municipal Government in North Carolina. He's worked in the IT department there for over 15 years, and his role is that of a player coach of a team of technology professionals that are managing the city's asset inventory and workflow all throughout their asset lifecycle, focusing on capturing asset condition and the cost to maintain them. He also works as the city's integration team lead, assisting with software integrations between various enterprise systems. And that background will be so important throughout the day. So we're very excited to have Chad with us. Chad studied computer science at NCSU and has a strong technical background. He really has a vast knowledge and expertise, and recently has been very enthusiastic about diving into the world of data and analytics along with machine learning. So really exciting stuff. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I know we've got a really exciting new report that just came out from Dodge Construction. And Steve, we'd love for you to just take it away and let's dive right into the report.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thanks everybody for tuning in today. As Chris mentioned, I'm Steve Jones. I've been in the design construction industry my whole career. I did 20 years in architecture and engineering. I was a principal with a big firm here in the Northeast that became one of the major units of Stantec when they came into the US. Stantec is now the #6 AE firm overall. And I took the .com plunge and went with Primavera for 4 years. It's where I got to know Chris. And I worked together there. And then I moved over into Dodge Data and Analytics. It was McGraw-Hill Construction at the time, but I've been there almost 20 years now, and I head up our research group. And as Chris mentioned, this is the biggest industry on the planet Earth that we're part of, but it is the most fragmented, and it's so difficult to know about anything other than the handful of projects you happen to be working on at any one time. And so we have the really interesting task of going out and studying all of the various things that are going on out there and trying to bring some quantitative, structured analysis and research to them so that people can benchmark where they are in their progress and know what the right next steps that they can take are based on what other people who look like them are doing. We publish these as a series of SmartMarket reports and briefs. We have probably over 50 of them, and they're all free because they're sponsored in advance by companies like Trimble, who want us to go out and do that kind of work and then make it as widely available as possible. So you'll see me referring to this construction.com site with toolkit and reports. We've got dozens of these things up there. A lot of them deal with technology, but others deal with all kinds of things to do with how it is we do our business and how it is that the processes that we all engage in, and how can we make them better, especially how we can apply technology to those processes. So let's look specifically at what we've recently done here about how owners are engaging in what we're calling connected construction. So this is based on a survey that we did the end of last year, we got 954 responses overall. Our owners, architects, engineers, GCs, and trades. Out of that, we had 133 owners. And you can see here the breakdown. We asked each owner that you had to at least be having some projects in one of these areas. And in some cases, of course, they had them in multiple areas. But you can see we got a pretty good representation across all the major sorts of food groups of types of projects out there. So when you see these responses going forward here from owners, you'll see that they're really reflecting the breadth of our industry. So I'll take it today through some key findings. I encourage you to download the report, but we've got the use of digital workflows, we have the connectedness with stakeholders, specific digital workflows that we dug into, what some of the benefits are, what the influences are, and widening the use of those among folks who are still not doing them as widely as they should or not doing them at all. Right? So first and foremost, who's using digital workflows? We want to cross, and this is just for the owners in that group, that 133 owners. The report itself will have this information for design firms and contractors, but today we're just going to focus on what the owners told us. So we broke it out between those who say that they have a very high engagement, right? They use a single connected construction management solution for pretty much all of their processes, right? That's kind of the ideal state, and almost a quarter of the folks in the survey are at that level. The next biggest group are doing what we call a mix, really. They've got some separate software solutions. They're tying them together. They're integrating them. They're working with them. They're still achieving a lot of the benefits, but it's not quite as clean as having a single platform. Well, that's the medium, where they're using a mix of some things which are actually disconnected, and so they end up having to do a lot of kind of that manual crunch in between various departments or in between various applications. And you've got still some at the low. They're using a few disconnected solutions, but really they're using mostly a lot of kind of manual processes. And then only 1% weren't using any of them at all, right? And so using a sort of a swimming pool analogy, you've got a relatively high group down there, over half that are either in that high or very high, so we're more the deep end of the pool and getting those benefits that we'll look at later. And that compares pretty nicely, actually, to what we saw from the designers and the contractors, right, who were each about 42%, whereas owners are 54% down at the deeper end of the pool. So we also looked into how often those owners are actually requiring that the contractors they work with use digital documentation practices, right? And this is pretty encouraging here, right? We get 69% who are either doing it frequently or very frequently. And this is a way that owners can leverage their role on projects to actually drive greater use throughout their project teams and across all their portfolio projects in these digital workflows, right? This is very encouraging. And part of the reason we like to do studies like this is we like to baseline where we are today. Well, let's come back in 2 years and see how the whole industry has changed. And hopefully we're going to be seeing 70s or maybe 80s of this, where that's becoming a mandated practice by owners. In order to enable their use of digital, they're getting their project teams to go digital. So there's a difference, though, between the degree to which there's a maturity around internal workflows and external workflows. That top bar is the degree to which folks have incorporated internal department digital workflows, right? And you can see this is kind of 60% are doing at least half of their work that way. It's less yet now on the multi-company, right, where you're getting your project team engaged. It's really closer to a quarter, a little less than half there. This again is something that's going to be very interesting for us to baseline this now. Let's come back in a couple of years. We'll survey a group again. We'll see. Hopefully, we're getting a lot more activity in that multi-company digital workflow. In terms of that internal, here's what all of your peers are saying that they most frequently connect with, and we break it down between the large companies. We use 100 million here as a breakdown, breaking point between in terms of your annual capital spend. In terms of those who are large, and then the very large are even bigger than that, obviously. But then the small and the mid-size are ones who are going to be 100 million or less. And although the larger companies are more engaged by percentage than the smaller ones. The proportions are about the same, going from project management, finance, accounting, and procurement on all the way down to internal audit and corporate real estate in terms of the degree to which they digitize those internal workflows. Now, looking at the more challenging part, which is the external workflows, again, with that same breakdown between large companies and smaller companies, the GCs are the key player here. That's the ones that most folks have developed digital workflows with. After that come engineers, then architects, then the trade contractors, then the BPMs and equipment manufacturers and permit authorities. When we asked about self-assessment, if you will, about, all right, how good are you at this, right? Where do you think are you strong at this? Is this something that you have as a core competency to be able to take these workflows and digitize them? Well, you know, along with the propensity and the proportion of internal workflows comes that capability, really. So we still do have a pretty significant gap out there in terms of people who feel like they're good at doing this harder work. Frankly, it's more difficult because you're working with third parties, right? You're trying to control behavior between softwares and companies to do it, so it's harder. There's that skill gap is pretty significant. So the next part of the report dives more deeply into this nature of connectedness with these stakeholders. So on the left there is between internal departments, on the right between the internal stakeholders. How do you think you're doing, right? How's this working for you? How satisfied are you with it at this point? And what we like to see are that very satisfied, or at least somewhat satisfied. And so the internal, it's working pretty well. You've got almost 2/3 saying, you know, this is working well for me. I'm at least somewhat satisfied, and in many cases, very satisfied. Unfortunately, we're still struggling, right? Less than half are able to say that about the quality of their ability to connect well and be connected in that project way with their external stakeholders. So there's clearly work needing to be done here. One of those aspects is breakdowns, right? How frequently do you actually experience connectivity breakdowns with the external stakeholders that you're working with? On the left, that pie chart will show you about 60% are experiencing connectivity breakdowns. And when we ask that 60%, then the follow-up, all right, who does it tend to happen with the most? Well, you know, unfortunately, that #1 frequency of data exchange are the contractors, and that is where the most frequent reporting of these breakdowns are. And you can see it going down from there. What we did was we took this and put it into one of these matrix maps, right, an XY axis. So along the bottom, from left to right, you've got how frequent that exchange is, right, from permitting authorities not being very frequent to GCs and engineers being super frequent. And then going upwards is that frequency of the connectivity breakdowns, right? And so it helps you kind of see where the priorities are, right? Building product manufacturers and permitting authorities, not really much to worry about. Where you really need to focus and worry is that GCs and CMs, right? If you're going to put some effort and investment into making sure you've got good connectivity digitally with players on your teams, you really want to start with GCs and CMs. After that, look at engineers. That mid-tier of the trades and the architects. Right? The trades, there's a lot of breakdowns, but we don't see as frequent of a need for it yet, right? But of course, that's going to change as everybody gets more connected, right? So I put them in 3rd place. Then we looked at what it is that people believe is actually going to improve what they would report as their satisfaction, right? What are the, to use a lean phrase, the conditions of satisfaction, right, for connectivity? And #1, although, you know, interestingly, we gave everybody this full list and said, pick your top 3, because if we gave them the full list and said, you know, select all that apply, we get 100% on everything. And that doesn't teach us anything. So we forced every respondent to say, all right, of this list, tell us what 3 are the most important to you. Now, oftentimes when we ask these questions in our surveys, we'll get, you know, the top it'll be 80, the next one will be 75, and it'll come all the way down to 2, 3, 4, 5%. Here, quite interestingly, there's not really any one silver bullet. As you can see here, there's not that big of a spread between the one that getting the 44% and the 33%. So really, all these things end up being kind of important, but to different groups within the whole. But overall, all of these are important, right? The increased ability to analyze data so you can make better decisions, right? At the end of the day, that's the number one thing. But then just getting better access to data and being able to do better training for how to use these tools, et cetera, as you see things down here along the left side. We also have spent a fair amount of time in the report, and then again, I please encourage you to download the report, but looking at the specific digital workflows. We broke that between the pre-construction design phase and then the construction and closeout phase. And we looked at activities because we believe one of the important benefits of using these digital workflows is you can now much more effectively trace your problems to the root causes and relate those to activities, right? What is it of these activities on the left or on the right there that tend to create the problems, right? And are you actually able to track those? Because today, not very many people are able to track those unless they're using some kind of digital workflow tools. I'll show you those findings here. These charts go through each one of those on the left and on the right, and we ask, if you're not able to, tell us if you're really not able to track it. And you can see those who aren't using any kind of workflow for this, they can't track it. And the lighter green is the very small percentages of people who they are using digital workflow tools. Very few of them say that they're not able to track, because that is one of the key benefits, is you can actually now conduct much more root cause analysis on what it is, what activities are generating the sorts of problems you have on projects when you are engaging in digital workflows. One of the huge big takeaway benefits here is that you can see the averages. It's astounding difference, right? Clear benefit to be able to track these root causes. So we did the same sort of analysis here, where if you look at how frequently in the pre-con and design, you're seeing those relationships and then how bad they are, right? How much of a negative impact they are. You really want to look at things related to design review, estimates, and then to a lesser degree, the bid procurement or the project intake request. Those are the ones that are going to have the highest return to you. We also asked folks, all right, how many of you are actually digitizing these activities within your organizations, right? So we'd like to see improvement with design review and with estimates. They're not ranked at the top, right? But they're clearly in the chart on the left. They're showing you that's where the problem areas are. So we'd like to, again, when we come back, hopefully when we resurvey the industry in a couple of years, we'll see that these have improved. But right now, that's clearly areas that need some further development, further adoption of digital workflows. Same thing with construction and closeout, those activities. You can see that budget approval and change activities, project detail updates, and RFIs are the ones that end up being really frequent and really toxic, right? And then below that, the potential change order or project closeout activities, payment apps, commitment invoices and approvals and field inspections don't seem to be creating very many in the way of problems, and when they do, they don't seem to be negative. So again, those ones more in the upper right are the ones to focus on. And then when we ask folks, all right, to what degree have you digitized those with integrated digital workflows, right? They're not at the top of the list, right? So that we need some improvement here. So this is why we do these studies like this, because it makes it easier to see, all right, I think if we focus on these three areas, at least that's where we're going to get the biggest lift in the near term. And in the report, you'll see we took all of these and we indexed it all in a 1 to 100 index, both in terms of the frequency that they cause problems and then the negativity of the problems that they cause. And you'll see this in the report. So please take the time to go through the report and you'll see this chart in there, again, as a roadmap for where to go in the future. So we also look at where people invest, right? So you've got high current level of use versus those who are at the low level of use. Those folks who are already pretty deep in the pool, they're focusing on project closeout. That doesn't even show up yet on the right-hand side because there's so many other things that those folks still have to tackle. The design review, fortunately, is showing up high with both of them. We saw that earlier as being an area that frequently causes problems, and their problems are really toxic when they happen. In terms of benefits, we asked folks to rate how frequently are you getting each of these benefits, and this is the folks who said they were either getting them frequently or very frequently. These things are tough to achieve any other way, right? You're getting increased efficiency of all those internal processes because you've tied together with digital workflows. You get better informed decision making during the process of the project. Increased efficiency of all your multi-company processes, not as high because of course they're not as digitized yet. But improved cost predictability, right? Great thing. Improved ability to predict and mitigate risk, really a great thing. The ones on the lower right there, less than a third are reporting those. Those are still emerging, but important. And again, we'd love to come back and do these studies, and it's a time series, and be able to see how things are improving. And then in terms of when the project's done, or you're looking back at it, what can you say were the outcome improvements? Did we do better quality? And were we able to deliver faster? You're getting more than half saying that they're getting that frequently or very frequently because they've actually implemented these digital workflows. A little bit more of the emerging would be decreasing risk, and increasing profitability doesn't apply to owners very well. That particular one scored really high with contractors because that's really more of the business they're in. And then how do we get folks to either do more who aren't doing enough yet? Again, we did that select top 3 by folks who are in the shallow end of the pool or still not even in the pool yet. They're feeling like there's insufficient technology out there, right? That's more of an educational issue. There's too few relevant stakeholders, right? That's much more of an adoption issue. So each one of these things can be dealt with, right? But it's good to know what they are and in terms of how it is that an organization can improve if they work on these things. The multi-company workflow ones are really the ones that need the most work here. And so that senior management has to understand why it's worth investing in. You've got to get more folks doing it, and the technology will do it. It's a matter of understanding how to apply it, right? And then the most compelling benefits out there, again, selected among the top 3, the ability to do more with the same resources. Everybody's got resource constraints, right? So the degree to which you can tie it to that, to be able to tie it to the ROI on all your other technology investments, right? Because you're helping to tie tools together. And again, the ability to attract and retain talent to try and deal with this workforce issue that everybody's struggling with. So we've got in here also a terrific 3-page interview with Chad Foley. And you'll meet Chad here with us in a few minutes to join us. But you'll see his wisdom in here in addressing how it is that the City of Raleigh is implementing digital workflows. And so I look forward to his comments today, and I'll turn it back over to Chris.
Thank you, Steve. What an amazing report. When I think about the research here, and if you're just tuning in, this is a report for owners that literally provides a roadmap of where the value is in digital transformation of construction workflows within your organization. And I point to the data here. 54% of owners today have made meaningful progress in terms of digitizing and creating digital workflows to optimize the performance of their capital improvement programs. And that's pretty exciting. If you add the other 31% that have technology solutions, albeit maybe disconnected and disparate from an integrated type of approach, that's 85% of organizations that have taken some meaningful steps towards digital transformation. That's pretty impressive. Now, hey, if you are on this webinar and you're looking at your feet right now thinking, oh my goodness, wow, I'm glad everyone else is that far along, we're not. Don't be worried. It's okay. The whole point of this research is to say there is now precedence, there's now a roadmap, there's best practices that are being used out there that help organizations really put their arms around the approach to this. So this doesn't have to be scary. And I think you'll get a chance to hear how other organizations got started. So we're really excited to have Chad back onto the program here. So I've got a great question for our panelists here. We've heard so much about the anticipated increase in project volume, specifically with public agencies. Why is now such an important time to be taking action on taking steps towards this digital transformation. And let me pitch that to you, Chad.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Well, thanks. I'm Chad Foley. I work at the City of Raleigh in the IT department. Why now? I mean, well, especially where I am in Raleigh, in North Carolina, we're just growing so fast. I think there's like 60 people that move to this area every single day. So just to keep up with the growth, my first thought really that when you said why now was really COVID came to mind, because we started with eBuilder just right about at the beginning of COVID, about 2.5 years ago, and it's been really instrumental in, since weren't meeting together, that we could do it digitally. That was an interesting development. We kind of scrambled to get a lot of processes set up to handle that, since we weren't doing in-person meetings. And then just your consumer or your customer expectations, or just consumer expectations now are so high. I mean, people are more tech savvy with their phones, and I mean, people expect DocuSign now. They expect digital signatures. They, the days of bringing CAD files on thumb drives are kind of over, and Excel spreadsheets just aren't really cutting it anymore. It's just too hard to find. So, really just kind of bring it to the 21st century. I mean, a little background on Raleigh. We've had eBuilder, like I said, around 2 years, a little over 2 years. We have about 80 users in the system. I'd say about 200 projects. A lot of those are very small projects, but we also have large projects like our bus rapid transit program. We have about 80 internal users and 30 vendor users or contractors that log into the system. And we're growing, so we're just trying to handle that growth.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And Steve, I know you get a chance to talk to a lot of owners around. Have you heard from them? It's why now is it so important to take that digital step?
Yeah, I'll give you the Dodge perspective on this, because as you know, we do economic forecasting for the construction industry. And according to our forecasts, the industry that we're in, which is already a huge industry, will be about a third bigger within 5 years in every sector. I mean, non-residential building, right, which is everything other than single and multifamily res, that was about 300 billion in starts last year. Within 5 years, it'll be 400 billion in starts, 1/3 more activity that year, right, and growing incrementally each year along the way. Even residential is going to go up 25%. And non-building, right, where a lot of this infrastructure work is going, that was 190 billion last year. That's going to be 260 billion in 5 years. Again, it's going to be 1/3 bigger, right, than what we're already doing. And frankly, the worst thing we could do, friends, is to spend all this new money in the dumb old ways, right? We do surveys for the AGC and the Lean Construction Institute. We've surveyed owners, we surveyed contractors, and we go through the same exercise every time. We say, think about the best project you did in the last 5 years, and then think about a typical, totally normal run-of-the-mill project in your company, right? And we're going to ask you a bunch of questions about how you do those, because at the end of the day, what we want to do is point to the things which actually seem to correlate to better performance, right? But you know what we find? Even on the best projects, when you add everybody's best projects together, 1/4 of them are over budget and 1/3 of them are over schedule. Your best projects. Every other industry on the planet Earth, none of us could last a day working for any of those other businesses. I mean, we've all heard the phrase Six Sigma, right? Which is what the big manufacturing companies do. What they're trying to do is get good enough that they only have 6 or fewer errors per million activities, right? I mean, if you look at our track record, we're about 30% of the projects have problems. We were like 300,000 Sigma. It's embarrassing, right? I mean, we can do so much better. right? And the tools are there. And this is largely what we've now just gone out and proven, is that this is possible and achievable to do a whole lot better. Part of what it takes is actually paying attention to what you did on your previous projects and measuring and moving forward. But to be able to use the tools you have now to finally fill in that gap, because you can capture what you're doing and what you're doing on projects. And then you can actually truly do analysis, as opposed to just, well, we'll just try our best again next time, because that ain't been working, right? So it's a very exciting time with technology coming in at the point that we are about to explode in terms of volume.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense. It's the impetus to improve productivity, the availability of digital tools that are out there, and then a total unanticipated macro, change event that are all starting to converge to be, hey, if we can all video conference, we can do these other things digitally as well, which is great. So, as you think through digital transformation, and Chad, I'm going to throw this also to you, is you guys have a great track record of innovation in GIS as well on the asset lifecycle management side of the equation. What areas should owners prioritize? What was it like for you at the City of Raleigh? So you could go implement digital transformation in design, or during the build phase, or the operations and maintenance phase. What was it for the City of Raleigh?
Yeah, I think our priorities, GIS definitely, GIS is really the backbone of a lot of everything that we do here. So that, that's been a critical piece. I would say a lot of the priorities are around, currently my priorities are, I'm trying to roll eBuilder out to all the other departments. So we have 2 departments using it currently, and we have plans for kind of a citywide adoption for all CIP or capital improvement projects. So my priority is to get to standardize these processes across departments, and to kind of get that collaboration, with the vendors and contractors, so you can just, log in and see, a pay app, or see exactly, where everything is at, how much is the invoice at any given time, who changed what last. You can really just pretty much track everything in a glance. So the collaboration is a big priority. That citywide adoption is a priority. Historically, we had our GIS foundation, and then we were, the past 5 or 10 years, focused around the O&M, or operations and maintenance, around just tracking our spending on our maintenance of these assets, the equipment costs, labor costs, material costs for the GIS assets. How many fire hydrants did we repair last year, and how much did it cost the city? Now that we've kind of gotten a mass adoption of the O&M and the GIS and asset management, we're now in this kind of CIP priority phase, where we're trying to standardize our processes, get things out of people's shared drive and Excel, and really kind of open it up, make it more transparent to executive management, standardize the reporting. I guess all those things are pretty high priority.
Yeah, Chad, that makes a ton of sense. Guys, that's wisdom. Listen to Chad here for a second at a very high level, right? It is, if you're a city, municipality, or a county, and you have physical assets all over a geographic region, and you could be a university campus or others, you got to know where your assets are, what the condition is of those assets, and the amount of work that needs to either be in repair or replacement informs your capital improvement program. So the whole idea that you started with the asset and then made your way into capital improvement program, and sweeping the digital transformation then from asset over to now project management makes complete sense. And Steve, I know that makes a big connection in the data. What did you find in the report?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Start asset first and then work back upstream to improve your processes. When you look at the difference in the data between what we can just call the maturity among those who are in the pool and doing things with digital workflow, between that pre-con and design phase stuff versus the construction and closeout, right? That pre-con is still the most virgin territory, right? It's the one there where you still have the highest frequency of problems relating and the least use of digital workflows, right? So I would think that moving in that path from get your O&M operations together and digitize, and then move one step back up into that construction closeout. But then that most uncharted territory yet is that design and pre-con phase. That's where the most, the lowest current engagement and the highest correlation and negative outcomes seems to be happening. So I love that path, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a great segue to the idea of workflows. And Chad, I heard it as you were explaining what happened at the City of Raleigh. Sounds like initially your experience was to look inward in terms of workflows. What can we do from our organization's perspective and get, I'll use my words, get our act together on being really proficient with our internal workflows, and then extend. What do you feel like are some of the most impactful workflows, either within your organization or external to your organization, that have made an impact?
I mean, there's many. I think to me the secret sauce is having the vendor being able to log in and being able to control what they can see, and so you're on the same page and you're not having to do back and forth emails or a ton of meetings just to communicate. But as far as our processes internally, probably the most common one we use are the payout process with an inspector daily report. Just making sure that the materials and the quantities and that are logged on that report are pulling right from the commitments, pulling right from the budget. A vendor has a view to that to approve or kick back. We have the same. A lot of what Steve talked about earlier, we have processes for, like the RFI, various contract approvals. Let's see, even just like communications internally. Like we have a monthly status report that auto spawns in the system just every month, and part of that workflow that we created will say notify our communications analysts. So if they need to update the city website with some new status about the project, or so we've been pretty creative, and we even have a lot of our power users creating their own workflows now. So initially we started with 3 or 4 processes that were kind of delivered. The technology part's the easy part. I don't have to create processes anymore. Our users can do that themselves. It's really trying to figure out what it is you want the process to do, and then thinking about how to make it more efficient, and not just converting what you're currently doing, but really thinking about what could you do to improve it as you're kind of building out these process flows.
Yeah, and Steve, you shared a lot of great data from the report on those sort of high impact, high frequency workflows. Remind us what those highlights were.
Yeah, it seems like where we could benefit as an industry on focus would in that at least kind of construction and closeout, or even in the kind of the joints between design going into construction, or estimates, the bid procurement process, and the budget approval change order process. Those are the 3 which seem to relate back in that root cause analysis to the most frequent and toxic problems. And then in that design phase itself, design review is so critical. The secret sauce that's missing so many times is an informed context in which to make to approve something from design based on what the assets tell you worked. right? To be able to tie all this together now, right? To be able to inform better design because you've got really good information coming from your existing completed assets. That's the holy grail, right? That's what a digital platform can now allow you to do, is you get smarter as a whole, not hoping that maybe somebody who's doing design approvals might go and talk to somebody who's actually out there managing assets to find out whether, you know, something should be done way A, way B, or way C. It's all there, right? It's a beautiful world that we're heading towards.
Yeah. And oh, Chad, go ahead.
I was just going to mention we have some processes that we initiate, and we even have some that the contractor initiates, which kind of streamlines things as well. We do budget approvals. We do like a lot of invoice work, change orders. Like we have a consultant invoice that the contractor or consultant can initiate themselves. And I think RFIs also the contractor can initiate. But yeah, but you know, payoffs are most common. That's what we initiate, and that's that approval process to the vendor has sped things up quite a bit, kept us on the same page.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I've found, if you're listening to this webcast and you're thinking, wow, they have City of Raleigh has digitally transformed, you know, some hairy and audacious workflows, and they're streamlining that, you know, the intercompany communication between they as a municipality and their contractors who do work on their behalf. It doesn't all start out that way. You know, Steve, I'm going to bring this one to you. I remember seeing the report saying something about this sort of phasing. They kind of looked internally, optimized some workflows, and then it felt like this sort of extended maturity model. It's like once you got started internally, it gave you the experience and courage to reach out externally. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, absolutely. The crawl before you walk, and to do the easier thing, the low-hanging fruit, because at least you all work for the same employer. And you can encourage people to cooperate, right? And you can get commonality and commitment to using specific tools and using standard operating procedures. Everybody gets that that's better, right? Even if they have to give up their favorite shared drive and stuff, you know, they'll deal with it because basically the boss can tell them to. And once you begin to see, holy cow, isn't this better? Wow, I love it. Let's talk to the contractor, right? Let's start to get the contractor involved. And, you know, and if they've invested in a tool like you guys have, it's like, it's easy, right?
Yeah, we've been able to,
right? Boom, they could just come right in and start working. I love that.
We've been able to consolidate some of our processes too across various groups. Sometimes we have like a workflow conditional where if it's department, if it's stormwater, go down this process flow. If it's roadway design, construction, you know, do it something slightly different. And we're constantly tweaking these processes and kind of adjusting them as we go.
Yeah, that continual improvement is huge. I think overall what we suffer from an industry is we tend to, we got through that one, what's on the table now? You know, it's like, where's the biggest grease fire at the moment? It's never being reflective and saying, what did we learn from there, right? How can we put that learning into place such that we don't make that mistake again, or we get smarter about it, and help these people do it better, right? How do we get better as an organization? Unless you have this terrific way to capture information and standardized workflows, you can't get there.
Yeah, that makes the complete sense to me. So clearly, you know, Steve, you have talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of owners. Chad, you've got that deep insight into your own organization. And Chad, let me go with you first. If there was one piece of advice that you would give to all the owners that will be watching this video, who haven't begun their digital journey, they're literally listening to this video saying, oh my gosh, I want to get started. I don't know where to start. What piece of advice would that be?
I would say support kind of a top-down and a bottom-up support, executive sponsorship, and then it's hard to pick one thing. You're going to need a clearly defined governance that clearly defines the roles of what people are going to do. We have a user group that we meet quarterly, the eBuilder user group, just internally to share ideas across departments and look at the workflows, trying to streamline them. Let's see. I mean, there's a good opportunity to improve your processes as you're building them out, and not just transcribing what you're currently doing, trying to find those efficiencies. There's not much one thing. Yeah, I mean, I would say small teams, you need a champion in each group, in each department, that's gonna, understand the benefits and be able to create their workflows. That's been a big help. I could go on and on. So it's hard to pick one thing.
Yeah, and you're our guest, Chad. You're allowed to pick more than one. So, but I completely understand. And what I'm hearing, Chad, from your perspective is consider this as a change management initiative, right? You have to create a charter, set a vision, get champions within the organization. You need vocal evangelists to help you continue to pump enthusiasm into the organization, get some quick wins and improve them along the way. That makes complete sense to me, and I love that wisdom, because those are things we can all do. This isn't just for gigantic organizations or huge cities or departments of transportation. This is for small organizations as well to want to just take the next step and improve. Steve, how would you answer the same question? And I guess you get to have more than just one.
Okay. And this is not a knock on you, Chris, or your company, but let me just say, it's not about the technology. Don't just go buy some software and go, hey, it's all better now. Right? Look, we have that XYZ software. No, like anything else, right? You wouldn't just start taking medicines. No, you would take it because you got a diagnosis and you know that medicine actually works, and how to take it and when to take it and why to take it, and what else to take it with or not with, all of those things that go with it, right? Same thing. And this idea of root cause, I just can't overemphasize this. You've got to know why it is you get into trouble, right? Not just, well, that didn't kill us too bad. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. Next project, boom, It's taking the time to figure out what processes do we have that are broken to the degree that they created that problem. That's root cause, right? Now you have a reason to go out and shop for technology. Now you have something you're asking the Chris Bells of the world to come in and fix for you. And they can absolutely tell you how to do that, right? They can be the doctor and write you the prescription for exactly how to do it, but you got to know what's wrong with you first, right? It's not a one size fits all. Everybody's world is different in this crazy business, right? The city of Raleigh is different than the city of Denver, different than the city of Portland, for all the reasons, right, that you can imagine. And that just 3 cities, right? Imagine all the various types of owners that are out there on your call and are out there in the world, right? It's got to be a unique solution, but that's why good software is developed the way it is so customizable to what you need. And as you've heard from Chad, it's user-friendly so that you can now get stakeholders in there working on specific solutions within that framework. But know what it is that you want to try and make better, and then measure, 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 be relentless. That's the Six Sigma angle, right? You got to know what it is you want to fix. You got to know where you're at now. And then you got to make sure that you're getting better so that you can get those quick wins that Chris talks about. So you'll actually know and be able to take that to a senior executive and say, yep, you got us to invest X, Y, and Z, but here's how it paid off. And here's what we're going to be doing over the next year and how it's going to continue paying off. And then these are the next things we're going to attack after that. It's all going to be this much better, way worth the investment, right? Have a reason, have a plan, have a champion, both, as Chad said, both the champion at the top, right, who can get you the money, then have folks on the staffs who are ready to roll up their sleeves and get into this stuff and actually implement it and make it work. Just buying software ain't enough by itself.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And I'll also offer some of the words that I've heard from others. Is first of all, the if you are in the public sector, you would probably have heard of something called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or the State and Local Relief Fund, or ARPA. And those funding sources are all new opportunities to invest into digital transformation within your organization. In fact, there are specific clauses in some of those funding packages for what's called advanced digital construction management solutions, that some of your expenses, if not all of them, can actually be reimbursed through those funds. So this is creating opportunities for local municipalities and state governments and others to invest in their digital transformation through the increased funding that's coming into your organization. So there are grants that are available, and you have your funding that would come through your organization, and the funding flow down into your organization. So that's really exciting. So if you haven't started digital transformation and you're saying, I don't have the budget, my gosh, even that might be off the table for you. And now it's an open door to get started. And that's super exciting. And you don't have to take it all on at once. Just like Steve said, I love that idea. Take a moment, look within your organization, find out where's the most pain that exists within your organization, and where's the upside and opportunity, and there is a recipe for success of where to get started. So we're super excited. I would like to thank Steve Jones, Chad Foley, as a part of joining this webinar. We are so excited to have you on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and research. If you haven't already, just simply go in and search for the report, the Connected Construction, the Owner's Perspective, and you will definitely find a link where you can download that from Dodge, and that is where all the data that we talked about at the top of the call will be available. We did have some additional questions that came through, and one of the questions was, can I get a copy of the slides? And the answer is yes, download the report. All those data points are all available inside the report, and we can make additional information available post-webinar. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to type them in. You can type them into chat, so far we've got just one additional question that came through, which was, sort of looking back, and maybe Chad, this is to you, looking back, is there something that you would have perhaps done differently in sort of the digital transformation? Is it something you would have done faster or slower? Any thoughts there?
I think we should spend more time thinking about how to improve our processes versus just building them the way we had been doing things. There's some opportunity there. Also, just having the time to commit to that effort. I do see another question about contractors. Do you guys see that?
Go for it.
But as far as lessons learned, I mean, well, it's still early, I mean, it's not all peachy creamy here either. We still have several departments that we're trying to roll it out to, where I would say starting in small teams. I kind of joke about the eBuilder Ambassador program, where we go around and say, hey, we can save you this headache here. This is how the other guys are doing it. Come to our user group. And then I guess just communicate or getting with the right folks in the right department. The technology really is the easy part. It's knowing what you should do and what the businesses are doing that takes the time, and that's business processes.
Yeah, I particularly like that comment because it reminds me of what your and my old boss used to talk about, just taking all the bad things you already do and putting them into a digital system, is computerizing the cow path.
Yeah,
all that's going to do is get you to a bad result faster. Yay. No. Right, but to take the opportunity to do this in that thoughtful way where you know how you want to do it differently. And wow, let's make sure the tool is set up so we can now change the process, not just do it the same old way faster.
I would agree, and Steve, you brought it up a couple of times in the Six Sigma context. One of the foundations of Six Sigma is to define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, DMAIC. That's a process, and that's one of the things of any tool, right? It doesn't have to be just a Trimble solution, but any tool where you're digitizing the as-is state starts to pump out data. How long does it take? Cycle times, and how late are you on approvals, and how many days elapse between the start of the process and the end? And that certainly creates one of the paths to improve the process and deep bottleneck it. And I think that's one of the great mantles of digital construction. But I agree. I think a lot of people get stuck in digitizing the as-is process as the place to start. And you know, if they, I love that wisdom, Chad. If they started with a, hey, let's map out what is our process, and then ask the question, do we like it? Is that efficient? Or is now the opportunity to improve it? That is very wise words.
Yeah, because you don't want to make the investment and find out you got the exact same results. That doesn't help anybody. All that does is turn people off to technology.
Good, good. Well, gentlemen, I know that we're running towards the top of the hour. I think this has been an incredible session. You will have an opportunity, those of you who are watching, to read a case study inside the report of the City of Raleigh and get all of the data in the Dodge SmartMarket Brief. And thank you very much for participating in our webinar today, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session.